I'm Mick Garris, and this is Mortem. Our guest is the king of independent cinema. He's directed more than 50 films and produced almost 400, Roger Corman. Thanks for joining us here.
Happy to be here, Mick.
Especially in the wake of you have just received an honorary Oscar.
Yes, it was actually very nice. It was almost like a private party. It was what they call the governor's ball, and just members of the Academy and their guests were there, and it was very similar to the way the Academy Awards started, which were at a private dinner.
So, did you ever imagine you would be given an Academy Award?
No. Simply no. I knew I'd been nominated, but I predicted to friends flatly that there was no chance I would win. I said, I make low-budget films. There is no way the Academy is going to give me an award. And I got a call from Tom Sherrick, the president of the Academy, and said, the governors have just finished their meeting, and we voted to give you the Lifetime Achievement Academy Award. And I was really startled. Generally, when people get an award, they say, oh, I'm really surprised. They expected that all the way along. I truly did not expect it.
No one is more deserving. No one is more deserving. Now, you have gone from rebel to statesman. Tell me a little about that path.
I think it's a path of just getting older. You start as a rebel, and you inevitably slow down a little bit and start to accept certain things, and sometimes the establishment comes around a little bit to your way of thinking. Somebody said I was the oldest established rebel. I'm still a little bit of a rebel, but who knows?
Well, that's an interesting point, too. In the course of the movies that you've made as a director and as a producer, they've always had a little bit of a political bent. Even the most exploitive of the bunch, if I can use that term, kind of leans a little to the left.
Yes, I am and have been a man of the left. I've been very strong on the liberal side. But I make a point after The Intruder, which was a picture I made in 1960 with Bill Shatner in his first film about racial integration in the South. The picture got magnificent reviews, went to a number of film festivals, was the first film I ever made that lost money.
Wow.
So as a result of that, I felt I have to approach this differently. I cannot make an overtly liberal or left picture. What I should do is make a picture that is an entertainment. And underneath, subtextually, is a little bit of thought on my part. It might be political, it might be psychological, it just might be personal. But I make a point now, or have ever since The Intruder, of keeping it beneath the surface.
So no preaching, just storytelling.
No preaching, storytelling with a hint of some thought if some members of the audience want to pick up on it.
And it's also not just been leftist, but it's been kind of anti-establishment more than anything.
Yes, particularly in the 1960s. I was one of the older members of the counterculture. I did The Wild Angels, which was the first of the Hells Angels motorcycle films, and it went to the Venice Film Festival and was the opening night film. The State Department protested, saying this did not show America the way it is. What they meant was it did not show America the way they wanted America to be shown, but they played it anyway, and it did very well.
Now, you pursued an engineering degree at Stanford. How does a guy with an engineering degree from Stanford start making these rebellious, low-budget exploitation films?
You start from the bottom. I was an engineering student at Stanford, and I was writing for the Stanford Daily. And I found out the film critics for the Daily had free passes to all the theaters in Palo Alto. So I thought, I want to be a film critic. And so I wrote a couple of reviews. And as I began to analyze the films and write about them, I became more interested in filmmaking. And I knew very shortly that that was what I wanted to do. But to take a liberal arts course, I would have had to stay an extra year. And frankly, I just wanted to get the degree and get out. So I graduated as an engineer and had great difficulty getting a job. Finally, after about 6 months, I got a job as a messenger at 20th Century Fox for $32.50 a week.
Wow.
I had probably the worst starting job of anybody from our engineering class.
And how did your parents, who had put you through Stanford, feel about this?
They were very good. Both my mother and father said they would support me in anything I wanted to do.
Fantastic.
Now, support me was really psychological because they did something that I think is very good for parents. They paid all my expenses until I graduated from college. When I graduated from college, my father said to me, "You are on your own. We have paid for everything in this until this point. You can still have free room and board as long as you want to stay here. But beyond that, it's up to you to earn your own living." And I thought that was extremely fair. I accepted that as a totally reasonable bargain. I did stay at home a couple of years longer than I would have ordinarily because I was broke most of the time.
But he just threw you in the pool.
That's right.
And let you sink or swim.
Right.
So what was your process of going from out-of-work engineering graduate to directing a movie?
Well, I rose from messenger to story analyst, which really means just reader. I would read scripts and give my notes on them. And I gave my notes on a script that I thought was really good called The Big Gun. It was eventually produced as The Gunfighter with Gregory Peck. And almost all of my notes were used in the script. And the story editor got a bonus for the notes coming from the story department. I said, I don't think I want to stay at the studio too much longer. And I had some time on the GI Bill, so I went to Oxford to study literature, as a matter of fact. I came back, make it fast, got a job as a literary agent, wrote and sold a script, and said to the producer, I will work for nothing on the film just to learn how films are made if you'll give me a credit as associate producer. He said, sure, why not? He had a guy working for nothing. But that enabled me to set up in business as a writer-producer. And I raised a little bit of money and made a couple of films, low-budget films, which did well. And on the third film, I said, I want to try directing.
Was that Five Guns West as a director?
First film as a director was Five Guns West.
And how did it feel different to you when you stepped into the shoes of the director?
I was very nervous. I did not expect to be nervous. I had a 9-day shooting schedule. I had prepared as much as I could. I thought I was fully prepared and I would go in and shoot. I went in and I was really shaking. So I had no lunch the first 2 days. All I could do was lie down and rest during lunch. But by the third day, I began to get into it. And from then on in, it was all right.
What was your approach? Did you come in with a shot list and storyboards? And because you were doing this 9-day shoot, that's a pretty demanding schedule.
There are two ways to do it, which is a storyboard. I draw the rectangle of you, or maybe over the shoulder, my shoulder on you, and you draw that. As an engineer, I worked differently. I took as if I was above the set, and I would draw the set, and then I would draw the movement of the people. So it was more like an engineering plan. And from that, I could visualize where I would be.
Well, let's talk a little about genre, because it doesn't always mean the horror genre. But it seems like you have chosen most of your films to be genre films, whereas you're selling a genre rather than a movie star. Whether it's Western or thriller or mystery or horror movie or whatever. Let's talk a little about the importance of genre.
Genre, to me, is very important because, as you say, you're not working with a star. On a big picture with a star, you're free to do many things that you wouldn't do on a low-budget picture because the star sells the picture. I remember when Paul Newman came out in HUD, and I said to somebody, they can sell a picture called HUD with Paul Newman, but there's no way I could make a picture, call it HUD, and have anybody come to see the picture.
Is there a genre you're particularly drawn to?
I like many genres. I come back over and over to horror and science fiction. I've done some crime pictures, some westerns, some action adventure, but it keeps coming back to horror and science fiction.
And those are things you personally enjoy, or those are the ones that have made you most successful?
A combination of both. I enjoy them. Particularly, I enjoy the speculative aspects of science fiction. But also, I've found that in general, for medium and low-budget films, you have a better chance with horror or science fiction.
Certainly the most voracious audiences.
Yes, and the most loyal audiences. I go occasionally to these science fiction film festivals, and it's amazing how people will come up, talk to you, ask you questions, and know details about a picture you did 20 years ago.
They love it. I mean, you have given generations of movie fans some of their favorite memories.
Well, I would hope so.
Well, when you were young and watching movies and being inspired, what were the films that inspired you and the filmmakers that you aspired to?
I think I can answer that better now than I did at the time, because I wasn't that aware of who was making films. I would say of the American directors, probably John Ford, Howard Hawks, and Alfred Hitchcock, who of course was English and then became American. Mm-hmm. And the director I admired most was the old silent film director from Russia, Eisenstein. His picture, Battleship Potemkin, I believe is one of the most significant films ever made.
Well, it certainly seems to have created the language of cinema editing.
Yes, exactly. The way he cut the Odessa Steps sequence, where the troops are coming down the steps and the reaction of the people, but also the film editing going from close-up to long shot to pan shot and everything, and then the establishing shot. He used them all, and he was the first to utilize almost every, what would I say, technique or bag of tricks that directors have today. Although Griffith gets credit for the close-up, but Eisenstein gets credit, at least in my mind, for putting it all together.